Oh, Christmas tree. My earliest memory of a Christmas tree was of my mother decorating an arbolito or little tree that she and my father had brought home from the store when we still lived in Caracas. It was about 4 feet tall, artificial, with what looked like spiky bottle brush like branches radiating from a central trunk. She lovingly rearranged and spread the branches so that it did sort of look like a tree, and then began placing little red, blue, yellow, and green light bulbs on it. I was fascinated, not only by the process, but mostly by my mother's pure and contagious joy. She asked me to carefully hand her the fragile and glistening glass ornaments. A miraculous transformation began to take place. When the same ritual occurred a few years later, and my dad held my 7-month-old brother in his arms, we watched expectantly as my mother plugged in the lights, and my baby brother nearly jumped out of our father's arms with squeals of surprise and delight. So, of course, I, along with many, many others in the world, love Christmas trees. The nearly ubiquitous Christmas trees that come to spend the holiday season in our homes, offices, shops, town squares, and that line our streets during the Christmas season have a very old, venerable, and many layered history. The tradition is deeply rooted in humanity's religious past, though in our time it has developed a sizable secular significance. Humans have venerated trees, and especially evergreen trees, since time immemorial. The Egyptians, the Chinese, and the Hebrews have used evergreen trees, wreaths, and garlands to symbolize eternal life. Evergreens were used for millennia by pagan Europe to invoke the return of spring in the depth of winter. In Roman times, the feast of Saturnalia, dedicated to the Roman god of agriculture, Saturn, absorbed many of the previous pagan customs and evolved from a one-day celebration into the week-long, most important Roman holiday that it was in the time of early Christianity. Most of the customs we now associate with Christmas, gift giving, singing, lighting of candles, feasting, merrymaking, and the placing of fir trees and boughs indoors were incorporated from Saturnalia. By the 4th century CE, the Christian church settled on celebrating Christmas on December 25th, the last day of Saturnalia. Pagan tree worship survived Christian conversion in the Scandinavian customs of decorating houses and barns with evergreens to keep the devil away on New Year's Eve. They would also set up a tree for the birds during Christmas time. The custom of the Yule log also remained in Germany, where it was placed at the entrance or in the house, as it had always been during the midwinter holidays. Though we are not sure when the Christmas tree custom actually started, it seems to have been about 1,000 years ago. In medieval times, early trees were undecorated. As Christianity spread, Christian symbols were hung on the tree. The earliest decorations were edible: wafers symbolizing the Eucharistic host, which were later replaced by cookies, and also apples, berries, and nuts. It is believed that originally trees were hung upside down from the rafters, symbolizing the Trinity. Also, other trees such as hawthorn plants or cherry trees were also used, placed in pots and brought indoors in hopes of having them in bloom during Christmas. There was also a custom of having miracle plays during the holiday season, depicting the story of Adam and Eve, as December 24th was their feast day. A fir tree decorated with apples stood for Eden in the play that was acted out in front of churches on Christmas Eve. For those who couldn't afford a tree, a triangular structure was made of wood with shelves which contained figurines, evergreen branches, candles, and a star. By the 16th century, the fir tree and the triangular shelf had melded into the Christmas tree. The earliest official tree is disputed between Tallinn, Estonia in 1441 and Riga, Latvia in 1510. Both trees were put up by the Brotherhood of Blackheads, which was an association of local unmarried merchants, ship owners, and foreigners in Livonia, now Estonia and Latvia. What we know about the celebration is that the trees were erected in the town squares, danced around by the Brotherhood, and then set on fire. The modern Christmas tree seems to have been born in Germany. Legend has it that the Protestant reformer Martin Luther was the first to bring a tree into the house the way we do today. He was walking home by a wood one evening just before Christmas when he was taken by the beauty of the stars shining through the branches of the evergreen trees. When he got home, he told his wife and children, brought a tree into the house and decorated it with candles to recreate the beauty of what he had seen. In 1605, an unknown German wrote, at Christmas, they set up fir trees in the parlors of Strasbourg and hang thereon roses cut out of many colored paper, apples, wafers, gold foil, sweets, etc. In 1800, Queen Charlotte, the German-born wife of George III, may have put up the first Christmas tree in the United Kingdom. She had it in Windsor for the children of rich and noble families, and soon it became a popular custom with the wealthy. The custom became even more popular in all of Britain when Prince Albert and Queen Victoria, when their picture was published in the Illustrated London News, along with their children, a beautiful tree hung with glass ornaments and surrounded by gifts at its base. That iconic picture was published in 1850 in the US by Godey's Ladies Book, a very influential fashion journal. This article greatly popularized the Christmas tree in the US. However, Christmas trees have been in America since the late 1700s, brought here by German and Scandinavian immigrants. One of the very first accounts is of the Unitarian minister, the Reverend Charles Fallen, a German poet and patriot who moved to the United States and became the first professor of German at Harvard University and was a radical abolitionist. The Fallens had a house built on the corner of Fallen Street in Cambridge. Their family Christmas tree attracted the attention of the English writer Harriet Martineau during her long visit to the United States, and the Fallens have been claimed by some as the first to introduce the German custom of decorated Christmas trees to the United States. Although the claim is one of several competing claims for the introduction of the custom to the US, they, together with Martineau, were certainly early and prominent popularizers of the custom. The Christmas tree, like the living symbol that it is, has continued to evolve since arriving in America. First, trees began to get larger and larger. Initially, a small tabletop ornament, it had grown to ceiling height by the end of the 19th century. And it was accompanied by the tradition of gigantic Christmas trees in public spaces at around the same time. The electricity lobby pushed for the first national Christmas tree at the White House as a publicity stunt for the glories of electricity. A nearly 60-foot tall balsam fir tree covered with 2,500 light bulbs. A 20-foot tall Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center first went up in 1931 when the buildings were still under construction. By putting so many unemployed people back to work during the Great Depression, the tree became a symbol of hope. The next change came when the US developed artificial Christmas trees. By 1964, the artificial versions looked more real than ever before, and they made up about 35% of the $155 million Christmas tree business in the US. Today, approximately 82% of the trees in American households are artificial, and only 18% are real. The reasons for this are many. Climate change has made trees more difficult to grow. Farmers planted fewer trees during the Great Recession, and in general, trees take 7 to 10 years to grow. And there are even shortages of the farmers who grew them as they age out of the business. Artificial trees are also hailed as having a lower environmental impact than buying trees when the transporting to retail outlets is factored in, which is what I believed and why I've had an artificial tree for decades. But the National Christmas Tree Association is appealing to those same environmentally conscious consumers by arguing that real trees support local economies. They are grown in the US and Canada, while many plastic trees are manufactured in China. And that real trees are renewable resources and recyclable, while the artificial kinds are not and could contain some non-biodegradable parts. So I am now convinced that after just having purchased a new fake tree at Michael's, that the best tree is a real tree. I knew that. I take comfort in that I will have it for many years, and maybe by the time it needs to retire, we'll know how to fold it back into nature without causing her any damage. Meanwhile, it is glowing regally in our living room, resplendent with ornaments which are not only beautiful, whimsical, cute, or funny, but also full of precious memories of Christmases past and poised to make new ones, even in this year of unprecedented crisis and devastating losses. The light-filled presences of our trees speak to us from time immemorial and in the depth of winter, of the promise of ever-returning life, of peace, joy, and love to all people of goodwill in this festive and hopeful Christmas season. I wish you all a most safe and Merry Christmas, and invoke the words of Charles Dickens's Tiny Tim. May God bless us, everyone.